Welcome to the Ultimate Sports Blog Podcast. Today's Monday, October 1st, 2018. Today I'm going to recap yesterday's football games, talk about tonight's Broncos-Chiefs game a little bit. Then I'll go over the baseball games from yesterday. And we do indeed have two Game 163s as I predicted. We'll pick those. Then I'll do my MLB power rankings and pick players of the week. I'm going to do college football power rankings, and I'll also be doing week 6 guess the lines. Alright, to football we go. Some interesting results from yesterday. The Jaguars defeated the Jets 31-12. The Jags are 3-1. The Jets are 1-3. Blake Bortles, 29 of 38, 388 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Sam Darnold, 17 of 34, 167 yards, and a touchdown. The Patriots bounce back in a big way and defeat the Dolphins 38-7. Big time win for New England. They're 2-2. Miami's 3-1. Tom Brady, 23 of 35, 274 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. Ryan Tannehill, 11 of 20, 100 yards, and a pick. He was benched for Brock Osweiler, 4 for 5, 35 yards, and a touchdown pass. The Titans defeat the Eagles 26-23 in overtime. The game ended on a 10-yard pass from Marcus Mariota to Corey Davis with 5 seconds left in overtime to give Tennessee the win. Mariota, 30 of 43, 344 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Carson Wentz, 33 of 50, 348 yards, and 2 touchdowns. The Texans defeated the Colts 37-34 in overtime on a game-winning field goal by Kaimi Fairburn. Took advantage of Frank Reek's gaffe in overtime by going for it in his own territory. Colts miss. Houston takes advantage, gets the game-winning field goal. They're 1-3. Colts are 1-3. Deshaun Watson, 29 of 42, 375 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. He looked pretty darn good. Andrew Luck was phenomenal, bringing his team back from the dead to force overtime. 40 of 62, 464 yards, and 4 touchdowns. The Packers defeated the Bills 22-0. Packers are 2-1-1. Buffalo's 1-3. Aaron Rodgers, 22 of 40, 298 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Josh Allen, 16 of 33, 151 yards, and 2 picks. The Cowboys defeated the Lions 26-24 on a game-winning field goal by Brett Maher as time expired. Dak Prescott, 17 of 27, 255 yards, 2 touchdowns. Matt Stafford, 24 of 30, 307 yards, 2 touchdowns. Dallas is 2-2. Detroit's 1-3. The Bears absolutely manhandled the Bucs 48-10. Chicago's 3-1. Tampa's 2-2. Mitch Trubisky had a career game. Maybe this is his breakthrough game. 19 of 26, 350 yards, and 6 touchdown passes. Jameis Winston came in the second half. 16 of 20, 145 yards, a touchdown, 2 picks. Ryan Fitzpatrick was terrible. More like Fitz-tragic. 9 of 18, 126 yards, and a pick. The Bengals defeated the Falcons 37-36 on a go-ahead touchdown from Andy Dalton to A.J. Green. Dalton, 29 of 41, 337 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. Matt Ryan, 29 of 39, 419 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Cincinnati's 3-1. Atlanta is 1-3. The Seahawks defeated the Cardinals 20-17 to improve the 2-2. Cardinals are 0-4. Sebastian Janikowski kicked a 52-yard field goal as time expired. Russell Wilson, 19 of 26, 172 yards. He wasn't good. Josh Rosen, 15 of 27, 180 yards, and a touchdown. If I'm the Cardinals, you keep it riding with Rosen. The Raiders defeated the Browns 45-42 in overtime on a game-winning field goal by Matt McCrane with 1:46 left. Derek Carr, 35 of 58, 437 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 2 picks. Baker Mayfield, 21 of 41, 295 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 picks. Oakland gets their first win. They're 1-3. Cleveland's 1-2-1. The Chargers defeated the 49ers 29-27. Surprised San Francisco hung around. They're 1-3. Chargers 2-2. Phil Rivers, 25 of 39, 250 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick 6. C.J. Beathard, 23 of 37, 298 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 picks. I think he did enough to earn the start next week as they take on the Cardinals. The Saints defeated the Giants 33-18. The Saints are 3-1. The Giants are 1-3. Drew Brees wasn't great, but he came around later. 18 of 32, 217 yards. Eli Manning, 31 of 41, 255 yards and a touchdown pass. I think he was a little worse than what the numbers said because he missed a bunch of guys in this game on some throws. The Ravens defeated the Steelers 26-14. The Ravens are 3-1. Pittsburgh's 1-2-1. Joe Flacco, 28 of 42, 363 yards and 2 touchdowns. Ben Roethlisberger, 27 of 47, 274 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. So big time win for Baltimore. Terrible loss for Pittsburgh. Tonight we have a fascinating one. Chiefs at the Broncos, 8:15 ESPN. Joe Tessitore, Jason Witten, Booger McFarland, Lisa Salters on the call. This line just keeps going down. Kansas City's only a 3.5-point favorite. This tells you that a lot of people are betting the Broncos. I picked the Broncos to win this game outright on Friday's podcast. I still feel pretty good about that pick because I don't trust Mahomes on the road at night. If it was a day game in Denver, I'd pick the Chiefs, but it's a night game in Denver, so I took the Broncos. All right, baseball yesterday. It was the final day of the regular season. The Red Sox defeated the Yankees 10-2. I picked the Red Sox on yesterday's podcast. I was right. They're 108-54 Yankees. Finished at 162 for the regular season. Eduardo Rodriguez with the win. Luis Essa with the loss. The Orioles defeated the Astros 4-0 to potentially close out Buck Showalter's tenure as Orioles manager. Baltimore finishes at 47-115. Houston, 103-59. Paul Fry with the win. Brad Peacock with the loss. The Phillies defeated the Braves 3-1. Philly 80-82. Atlanta 90-72. Tommy Hunter with the win. Kevin Gossman on the loss. Seranthony Dominguez with the save. Next stop for the Braves is either Colorado or Los Angeles. The Dodgers steamrolled the Giants 15-0. Dodgers 91-71. San Francisco 73-89. Rich Hill with the win. Andrew Suarez with the loss. The Angels defeated the Athletics 5-4 on a walk-off home run by Taylor Ward in the bottom of the 9th inning. A 2-run shot to defeat the A's. Parker Bridwell with the win. Chris Hatcher with the loss. Next stop for Oakland is Yankee Stadium on Wednesday night. The Brewers steamrolled the Tigers 11-0. Worst prediction I made yesterday was the Brewers being given a game by the Tigers. Brewers 95-67. Detroit 64-98. Gio Gonzalez with the win. Spencer Turnbull with the loss. The Twins defeated the White Sox 5-4. The Twins 78-84. Chicago 62-100. That's a prediction I got right. The White Sox getting to 100 losses. Andrew Vasquez with the win. Dylan Covey with the loss. Trevor May with the save. That was Joe Mauer's final game. Perhaps in the big leagues, let alone as a member of the Minnesota Twins. They actually let him play catcher, which was pretty neat to see. Speaking of last games, the Mariners defeated the Rangers 3-1 in what could have been Adrian Beltre's final game in the big leagues. Seattle 89-73, Texas 67-95. Robbie Elias with the win, Yvonne Gallardo with the loss, Sean Armstrong with the save. The Pirates defeated the Reds 65-10 innings on a wild pitch as Pablo Reyes scored in the top of the 10th. Pittsburgh 82-79, Cincinnati 67-95. Michael Feliz with the win. Jackson Stevens with the loss. Felipe Vasquez with the save. The Mets defeated the Marlins 1-0. Mets 77-85. Marlins 63-98. Noah Syndergaard with the win. Sandy Alcantara with the loss. The Padres defeated the Diamondbacks 4-3 in 10 innings on a walk-off wild pitch that scored in Miguel Margot in the bottom of the 10th. San Diego finishes 66-96. Arizona finishes 82-80. Jose Castillo with the win. Jake Barrett with the loss. The Rockies steamrolled the Nationals 12-0. as they force a game 163. Colorado finishes 91-71. Washington finishes 82-80. Tyler Anderson with the win. Eric Fee with the loss. The Rays defeated the Blue Jays 9-4. The Rays 90-72. Toronto 73-89. Ryan Yarbrough with the win. Sam Gaviglio with the loss. Austin Pruitt with the save. The Indians defeated the Royals 2-1. The Indians 91-71. Kansas City 58-104. Carlos Carrasco with the win. Eric Skoglund with the loss. Trevor Bauer with the save. Last but not least, the Cubs defeated the Cardinals 10-5. As the Cubs get into game 163, that's going to be in an hour from now. Cubs 95-67. Cardinals 88-74. Allen Webster with the win. Jack Flaherty with the loss. The two wild card, or I should say play-in games. The loser goes to the wild card. The winner goes to the NLDS. Brewers Cubs 1 o'clock on ESPN. Jhoulys Chacin and Jose Quintana. This should be a fun game in the friendly confines of Chicago. I really think that the Cubs should win this game. And I think they will win this game. Even though Jose Quintana has been inconsistent throughout the year. 13-11 with a 4.09 ERA. Jhoulys Chacin's finished the season strong. 15-8 with a 3.56 ERA. But I don't know if I trust the Brewers in a big game like this. The Cubs have been there. They played in bigger games. I expect Anthony Rizzo and Chris Bryant to have big games. Wilson Contreras has had some big moments in big spots. Jose Quintana, this is a big game for him. And he's pitched okay in big games in the playoffs in the past before. And other times he has not. But I just trust the Cubs more than I trust the Brewers. The Brewer relievers, like Josh Hader, none of them have pitched in big games in their lives either. And I think that matters now that we're in October. So give me the Cubs at home to win the NL Central and perhaps play the Brewers or the loser of the second game in the NLDS. All right. 4 o'clock on ESPN. You have the Rockies and the Dodgers with German Marquez and Walker Buehler on the mound. Marquez is the Rockies' best pitcher, 14-10 with a 3.76 ERA. Walker Buehler has been the best pitcher on the Dodgers this year, 7-5 with a 2.76 ERA. I love Buehler. I think he will outduel German Marquez. The Dodgers get the win. I think that the Dodgers will not only win the game, but will obviously go on to face the Atlanta Braves in the NLDS, and I really think that this is going to be a great game. I think both games are going to be a great game. I'm going to make a prediction. I think one of these ends on a walk-off. I think the Cubs game will end on a walk-off. I think this game will be close, but Kenley Jansen gets the big outs late in the game to prevent the Rockies from coming back. I like that the game's at Dodger Stadium. I have to admit, if the game was in Colorado, I'd pick the Rockies. But on the flip side, if the Cubs-Brewers game was in Milwaukee, I'd still pick the Cubs. But I don't know, there's just something about playing in Coors Field, and I don't really trust the Rockies away from home, and they've had some tough losses in Shavaz's regime this season, most notably a few weeks ago. So give me the Dodgers here at home to take on the Braves as the Rockies go to what I think will face the Brewers tomorrow at Miller Park. I'm going to do the power rankings now for this week, and it's going to be the final regular season edition of the power rankings. I'm going to go 30-11, and then I'll do the playoff team power rankings. 30's the Orioles. Just saw them close out their terrible season with the win. That was probably Buck Showalter's final game as manager. 29, Kansas City Royals. They announced that Ned Yost is coming back. 28, the White Sox. They've had a terrible season. If I had to make a guess on a team that's going to improve by 10-plus wins next year that was terrible, I'd say that the White Sox would be my most logical pick, even though they're losing Michael Kopech next year with Tommy John surgery. 27's the Miami Marlins. That's a team that exceeded my expectations this year. They will not even finish with 100-plus losses which I think is a good thing. Don Mattingly's back next year, which I think he deserves to be back. I thought he'd be the first manager finder. I really thought that they were going to be a dumpster fire. Lineup out for the Brewers, by the way. Lorenzo Cain, Christian Yelich, Ryan Braun, Jesus Aguilar, Jonathan Scope, Mike Moustakas. The surprise start at catcher, Eric Kratz, Orlando Arcia, and then obviously in the 9-hole, the pitcher, Julius Chassin. Do I think this is the right lineup? Probably. I'm sure Eric Thames will make a pinch hit appearance in the game at some point. I think that the Brewers, the whole year, really didn't have a great catching situation. Speaking of lineups, here we go with the Cubs side. Daniel Murphy, Ben Zobrist, Javier Baez, Anthony Rizzo, Chris Bryant, Kyle Schwarber, Jason Hayward, Jose Quintana in the 8th spot, and Wilson Contreras. I'm not a fan of the pitcher hitting 8th, but sometimes it works, and other times it doesn't. I think that Zobrist should be hitting leadoff for the Cubs, not Murphy, because I think Murphy is capable of hitting one out of the ballpark. Surprising that Bryant and Schwarber hitting 5th and 6th, but hey, that's what adding Daniel Murphy does to your lineup. It lengthens it. Addison Russell's obviously on leave, and he probably shouldn't even be playing because he's been a weak link for them offensively. Although his defense has been phenomenal, he's obviously dealing with that personal situation. You're going to probably have Ian Happ and David Bodie and Albert Almora Jr. making pinch hit appearances throughout the game. This is just going to be a fun one in Wrigley Field. Back to the power rankings. I have the Tigers at 26. They had a bad year. Michael Fulmer, I think, will be on the trade block this offseason. 25, the Cincinnati Reds. I don't think Jim Riggleman's getting the intern tag removed. I thought that he should have 2 months ago, but the Reds faltered a little bit, and maybe they'll go out and hire Joe Girardi. 24, the San Diego Padres. 66 and 96 on the year. They are a franchise on the rise. They have some young pieces coming up next year. They're going to be an interesting watch. They could be next year's version of the Braves if things break right. 23 is the Texas Rangers. They're going to be searching for a new manager. Maybe that's the team that hires Joe Girardi. And I'm going to be interested to see what they do this offseason. 22 is the Toronto Blue Jays. They're obviously going to make changes. Marcus Stroman might be on the trade block. I know next year they'll have Vlad Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette on their team in all likelihood. 21 is the San Francisco Giants. They had a terrible second half collapse. They fired Bobby Evans. I think Bruce Bochy's back for one more year. This is probably going to be the start of a rebuild for them in the offseason. I think Madison Bumgarner's going to be on the trade block, among others. 20 is the Minnesota Twins. They finished strong to what was a disappointing year. And same with the number 19 team on this list, the New York Mets. They had a good finish to what was a disappointing season. So their record might be better than probably what it should be. I'm talking about the Mets and the Twins, for that matter. 18 is the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. Shohei Ohtani's getting Tommy John surgery, I think, today. And he's probably the Rookie of the Year favorite in the American League. 17 is the Philadelphia Phillies. Terrible collapse. Can't believe they finished under 500. They made all these trades to try to win the NL East, but they failed to do so. But I'm sure this is a team that's going to be a buyer in the offseason. Number 16 is the Pittsburgh Pirates, who had a successful season by most people covering the game because many people thought this was going to be a terrible team. They turned out to be a surprisingly competitive team. Number 15 is the Arizona Diamondbacks. Very disappointing finish to their season. They're in first place for the majority of the year in that division. Number 14 is, I think, the most disappointing team in all baseball this year, and that's the Washington Nationals, 82 and 80. Bryce Harper's probably gone after the year. At least they have two capable players of replacing him in Juan Soto and Victor Robles. 13 is the Seattle Mariners. They had a bad collapse. They finished 89 and 73, but that record's misleading because They were out to a good start in the first half of the year, and they're probably a worse than that team. Number 12 is the St. Louis Cardinals, 89-73 on the year. 88-74. They reminded me a lot. Them and number 11 on this list, the Tampa Bay Rays, both reminded me of the 2016 Yankees, which was a team that was a seller at the deadline and did add some parts to keep them somewhat competitive. I know the Rays went out and got Tommy Pham to keep themselves a little competitive. And from the Cardinals' perspective, they went out and got guys that could help them, although they traded assets away to get those guys like Chase and Shreve and people like that. And then they went out and got Matt Adams because they thought they were a contender. Rightfully so. They were in it. They actually had the wild card spot. They had a tough finish to the season with the Brewers and the Cubs on the slate, and then the Rockies took advantage and passed them. Good for the Rockies. Bad on the Cardinals. Cardinals are keeping Mike Schild as their manager. Ken Rosenthal came out and said that he thinks that was premature. You could arguably say that because they were 26-12 after he was hired, and then they took the interim tag off, and then they went 15-16 the rest of the way. But we'll see how that plays out. And then Rays, they have to be applauded. They had a phenomenal season, 90-72. Yeah, they didn't make the playoffs, but that's a good team, and they deserve credit for playing great spoiler to the Yankees among the other contenders in both leagues throughout the second half of the year. And now I'm going to get to the playoff teams. Number 10, I have the Atlanta Braves. Number 9 is the Colorado Rockies. I think both of these teams, especially if they play against each other, have a chance to advance to the ALCS. I'm just worried that a lot of these Braves players have never played in big games other than Freddie Freeman and Nick Markakis. Well, Markakis when he was with Baltimore. Rockies, they got the big game experience from the wild card game last year. Their pitching's coming together. Their lineup is solid too. 7's the Milwaukee Brewers. I just don't trust their starting pitching to get the job done. They have a great bullpen and a great lineup. 6 is the Chicago Cubs. Been there and done that. My worry for them is that their bullpen is shaky with so many injuries. Number 5 is the Los Angeles Dodgers, who I think is the team to beat in the National League. I expect them to win today. I expect them to face the Braves and go to perhaps the NLCS, assuming they get by Atlanta. And I really am a big Buehler fan. Clayton Kershaw's pitching a little bit better in the second half of the year. Well, his last start wasn't that great, though. This lineup's coming together. Yasiel Puig's gotten some big hits for them. So is Manny Machado. Machado's starting the round in the form with the Dodgers. Number 4 is the New York Yankees. A lot of people think that this could be a team that upsets the Red Sox, assuming they get by the A's in the wild card game. They had a good final week to the season. They won 3 out of 4 against the Rays. And then meaningless, but they took 2 out of 3 against the Red Sox. The Friday game, they had the win to secure the home field advantage in the wild card game. The Saturday game was meaningless, but they won that game. Yesterday's game was meaningless. They lost. But this offense is coming together. The pitching's been okay. Their bullpen, I think, has been kind of tired and not used properly, but I think that their bullpen will straighten itself out in the playoffs. Number 3 is the Cleveland Indians. This is a team I'm really high on coming into the playoffs. I think this team has a great chance to do some damage. Great lineup, great starting pitching, outstanding bullpen with the additions of Brad Hand and Adam Simber. Andrew Miller's back, although he had a bad outing against the Royals the other day. Number 2 is the Red Sox. I'm worried about a couple things for them. Chris Sale and his velocity being down is a huge worry for them, as well as the bridge to Craig Kimbrell. Their offense is on fire, as it should be. Rick Porcello pitched well yesterday against the Yankees, even though New York rested some players, and rightfully so. You don't want to get them hurt before the wild card game. And number 1 is the Houston Astros, the reigning world champions. They deserve to be number 1 as they head into the playoffs. Their bullpen's been a lot better with the addition of Roberto Osuna. They are hitting very well, although Carlos Correa has not been hitting well because of a back injury. Their starting pitching's been great, and they could be poised for another big October, although they have a challenge in them in the first round against the Indians, and I'll make my picks for the ALDS series on Thursday's podcast after the AL wildcard game is played. Players of the week, Miguel Andujar in the American League, making that push against Shohei Ohtani for the American League Rookie of the Year award. National League is so easy. I think he locked up the MVP award this week, and that's Christian Yelich. He's been absolutely phenomenal. I expect him to have a big game in Chicago, although I think the Cubs win, as I mentioned on the podcast before. I'm going to be quick with the college football power rankings. I'm going to say one quick thing about every team as I go. I'm going to go 130 to 1. 130 is UTEP, they're the worst. 129 San Jose State, they're the second worst. 128 is Texas State, they're bad. 127 Rice, they're bad. 126 New Mexico State, they're bad. 125 Kent State, they have one win, they're bad. 124 Louisiana, they're not good. 123 Connecticut, they're easily the worst team in the American Athletic Conference. 122 is Bowling Green, they're not good. 121 is Central Michigan, they're worse than I thought. 120 is Colorado State, they're totally worse than I thought. 119 South Alabama, they ain't that good. 118 Western Kentucky, they lost to an FCS school in the beginning of the year. 117 is Miami of Ohio, they lost this past week to Western Michigan. 116 is Tulsa, they're worse than I thought. 115 Georgia State, they got a nice win over the weekend again against UL Monroe. 114 Charlotte, has been surprisingly competitive so far this year. 113 is UMass. They're okay. They're not that good. 112 Ball State. I don't think they're that good. 111 Georgia Southern. Nice win against Arkansas State over the weekend. 110 Rutgers. They stink. 109 Kansas. They're still Kansas. 108 UCLA. Much worse than I thought. 107 Liberty. They're okay. They got a nice win against New Mexico over the weekend. 106 Illinois, they're better than I thought. 105 Coastal Carolina, better than I thought. 104 UL Monroe, bad loss over the weekend against Georgia State. 103 Air Force, classic look-ahead spot for them as they lost to Nevada with Navy looming this week. 102 is New Mexico. They lost to Liberty. 101 is FIU. They're okay. 100 SMU, playing a little better, although they just beat an FCS school. 99 is UTSA. Not a huge fan of them. They could make a bowl, though. 98 Wyoming. They're worse than I thought. 97 Arkansas, easily the worst team in the SEC. 96 Arkansas State. Disappointing loss against Georgia Southern. 95 Akron. Hasn't really done much other than upset Northwestern. 94 Western Michigan, they're coming off a nice win over the weekend. Eastern Michigan is coming off a disappointing loss over the weekend. They're 93. 92 Old Dominion, letdown loss at East Carolina over the weekend. 91 Southern Miss, they're okay. 90 East Carolina, a little better than I thought. 89 UNLV, they're okay. 88 Toledo, they should be better than this. Let the season play out. 87 Marshall, they have some nice wins. And then the NC State loss. 86 is Ohio. I thought they'd be better than this. 85 Northern Illinois, they're worse than I thought so far. 84 Nebraska, they're 0-4. 83 is Louisville, arguably the worst team in the ACC. I was so wrong on them. 82 Oregon State, they're good offensively, they stink defensively. 81 Kansas State, they are way worse than I thought. At least they hung around with Texas the other day. 80 UAB, they stink. Well, I don't want to say that they stink, that's wrong. But they're not that great, is what I'm trying to say. 79 is FAU. They took a bad loss against number 78, Middle Tennessee. 77 is Memphis. That was a bad loss against Tulane on Friday night. 76 Nevada. Big win for them at Air Force. 75 Utah State. They're pretty solid. 74 Tennessee. Not that good. They're the worst team in the SEC other than Arkansas. 73 is North Carolina. They're really not that good. 72, Georgia Tech. They destroyed whoever they played last week. I think it might have been Bowling Green. 71, Tulane, big win for them over Memphis. 70s, Pitt, a little inconsistent. 69, Buffalo, rough loss at home against Army. 68, North Texas. They just lost to the 67 team on this list, Louisiana Tech, who is much better than I thought so far. 66, Navy, a little inconsistent. Big one for them against Air Force this week. 65, Hawaii, much better than I thought. One more win away from bowl eligibility. 64, Northwestern, hung around Michigan a little bit. 63, Iowa State, hung around TCU in that game. 62, Vanderbilt, better than I thought. 61, Baylor, also better than I thought. 60, Wake Forest, a little Jekyll and Hyde, big one for them against Clemson this week. 59, Virginia, same thing. Don't know really what to make of them. 58, Florida State, big win for them to get to 3-2. Maybe they do reach a bowl game. 57, Arizona. Disappointing home loss against USC, although they hung around. 56, Temple. They're okay. Hung around with BC over the weekend. 55, Indiana. They're 4-1. But true tests lie ahead for them in the coming weeks. 54, Purdue. They're 2-3. 53, Ole Miss. Kind of was competitive against LSU, but not really. 52, Troy. One of the best teams in the Sun Belt. 51, Missouri, better than I thought. 50, Appalachian State, probably the best team in the Sun Belt. 49, Utah. Disappointing loss against Washington State. 48 is Fresno State, who I like. They only have one loss, which is against the number 47 team on this list in Minnesota, who I'm not really sold on either. 46, South Carolina. They just had a bad loss against Kentucky. 45, San Diego State. They're better than people realize, I think. I'm just going to rush these pie real quick. 44 is Army, big win at Buffalo. 43, Houston. 44, South Florida. 41, Cincinnati. 40, Iowa. 39, Arizona State. 38, Mississippi State. 37, Duke. 36, Syracuse. 35, Cal. 34, A&M. 33, TCU. 32, Washington State. 31, Maryland. All those teams are pretty much in that same tier. 30, Virginia Tech. I'm not buying them. Their quarterback's hurt. I'm not buying BYU either. I have them 29. 28, Florida. Not sold on them either. 27 is Boise State. They're better than what they've shown and better than the Oklahoma State game. Oklahoma State's 26. Texas Tech 25. They could have won that West Virginia game if not for the pick six. 24, Boston College. 23, NC State. 22, USC. 21, Michigan State. 20, Colorado. 19, Oregon. 18, Texas. 17, UCF. 16, Miami. 15, Wisconsin. 14, Kentucky. 13, Penn State. 12, Michigan. 11, Stanford. 10, Washington. 9, West Virginia. 8, Auburn. 7, Notre Dame. 6, Oklahoma. 5, LSU. 4, Clemson. 3, Ohio State. 2, Georgia. 1, Bama. That's it for today's podcast. I'm actually going to save Guess the Lines for tomorrow and then push the NFL Guess the Lines to Wednesday. And also tomorrow I'm going to pick the National League wildcard game between the two losers of today's games. I'll do my NFL power rankings. I'll do my predictions for every MLB playoff team. And I'm going to do a separate podcast at some point tomorrow with my season predictions for the NHL season. Hope you guys have a great day, everybody.